Good evening. Welcome to this week's Webmaster Central Web Search Helpdesk Hangout. Right, let's, oh, AJ has just, hey AJ, how's it going? Well, let's kind of get on the road. So, as far as it goes, Thomas, what do you think the chances are of Save iGoogle actually showing?
The iGoogle of the Save iGoogle.org. I have no idea.
Okay.
I haven't had any contact with Save iGoogle.org other than the forum and here in comments for this event. So I don't know. They wrote they had penciled this event in, so maybe they are showing, but otherwise, I don't know. And Maile Ohye is here. Welcome.
Yeah, hi Maile.
Hi.
Hey Maile, how are you?
Oh, hey. Fine, thanks. Just fixing my headphones.
Oh.
Yes.
It's a mess. I don't know if you can see this, but it's going to take a while.
Ooh.
Let's bring up the right here and tackle a couple of those.
Yeah.
Waiting for more people to show up.
Have you sent out all the invites yet or not?
Yeah, no, it's now open to the calls. Everybody's pretty much got the invite, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Should we just take a question from the moderator then?
Well, I think there is that one very important question that Matt, who's absent this week because he's had other things to do. But Matt Storm's ask, what's better, being in a hangout talking about search and SEO, or being at Yellowstone National Park on a motorcycle? May I just say before anybody else gets a shot in, I hate you. I think no, I'd have to take the hangout. I mean, what about you guys?
Depends on whether it's raining at Yellowstone.
Yeah, I suppose. That is a good point.
Yeah. Actually, there were one of the TCs, another top contributor here of Google, of Gmail, who visited Yellowstone at some point and said, there is one thing they forget to tell you about Yellowstone, and that's the smell of sulfur. It's everywhere.
So we smell better.
Yes.
We have got to beat sulfur.
This is very true. After that brimstone. But as far as it goes, given the fact that it's to the extent that matter to be in Yellowstone, so let's move on to a serious one. This is actually quite an interesting one, and it's not long come in, but it's getting some votes. Given that Firefox will be using SSL by default, and the not provided searches will increase yet again, are you concerned?
About what?
About the loss of more keyword data within analytics.
But it's been lost long ago, hasn't it?
Yes, but if Firefox is now moving to SSL by default,
well, technically, I don't think. I was just going to say, technically, I don't think the problem is actually the SSL. It's the fact that, or the secure socket layer. I think it's the fact that Google actually encrypts the results on their end.
Oh, yes.
So those two things are a little bit different, and I'm not sure if just the SSL will impact it. Is that right, Maile? Is that?
Sorry, it's loud and right now. I have not really I haven't really thought about this on my own, so I don't feel equipped to answer these right now. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no, I haven't either. It's just that was kind of the first thing that came to mind. Is it's not the SSL that's problem. Otherwise, you couldn't track, like, let's say e-commerce transactions and things like that. It's the portion that Google actually
encryption. Yes, of course.
Encrypt. So yeah.
Yeah, it's the indirect nature of the links you find in the results page.
So again, now that I think about it a little more, if Firefox is using, the HTTPS Google.com and therefore is causing the encrypted queries, and that could, potentially be problematic. I'm not sure exactly what they've changed recently.
But
what about you, AJ? I mean, if more keyword data suddenly disappears, where do you feel it's going, and how do you feel about it?
Am I off mute? I'm off mute. Okay. I don't know. I don't mind too much. I'm not a big, frankly, not provided sort of made it raise the game, I think, for some people, so that they didn't just go to analytics and look at the keywords and say, oh, this is what I should do. So I was okay with it. Clearly, it's a matter of scale. If we get to where not provided is 80% of the traffic, it'll be an issue. If it's below 40%, I'm okay. There's such a thing as sampling, and I think it's pretty easy to get a sense of what you're going to do with keywords and understanding intent and syntax without having a full universe of data. So that's my view.
Well, see, this is the thing. I mean, okay, I'm in the fortunate position where a whole bunch of the sites that I look after, I've looked after in some cases since 2004. And really, at the end of the day, yeah, first of all, you know the turf well, but second of all, you kind of start to understand visitor behavior, visitor patterns, and which end of your site they actually pick up and try to hit things with, and I think that is as important, if not maybe a little bit more so, than, as you said, just going to the analytics data, looking at the keywords and trying to optimize for things. So from that point of view, yeah, I think you're quite right. It has raised the game. There's no question about that.
And while some of that while some of that data may be lost in analytics, there's still a lot of data in Webmaster tools that's also valuable in terms of the number of impressions and clicks and the top queries and pages and things like that. So I think that can be especially insightful too with some of the data being lost from analytics.
And you've still got the stuff in your server logs, haven't you? I mean, which is what we all used to, sort of just depend on.
Yes.
Yeah, you say all. I don't think I've actually come across too many people. So, well, out in the wild, I don't even know server logs exist. But yeah, I mean, certainly those of us in here and in the industry, in the game, yeah, server logs, totally.
If you get to the idea about server logs, I mean, there's so much more you could even do there. I mean, obviously, Webmaster Tools and Analytics, like all these things give you a lot of information. But if you could go through your server logs and actually determine what Googlebot's crawling and the frequency of that, and correlate that with what pages they're not receiving in terms of your overall site, there's so much there, too. I mean, we could just do an entire hangout on what you could do with your server logs if you were so inclined.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Maggie, thanks for bringing that up, because, of course, you do have so much within your control. It's just people have gotten used to more ways of seeing the data that without having to actually go through line by line.
Yeah, having it all crunched for you. It's made it lazy.
Especially with analytics, right? Because then it's like shiny and like print the report and send to whoever your higher ups.
Right.
But yeah, but if going through, I mean, maybe someone could write a blog post. There's just so much there in terms of your server logs and what's going on.
Dan actually did a blog post. Dan Petrovich did a blog post on server logs the other day.
Well, there you go. So he's done it. I'll have to check it out.
Now, AJ is just... No, go on. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say. I mean, if you're not parsing your server logs, I mean, and you're just relying totally on data from analytics or Webmaster tools, you're really missing out on a major set of data, and a lot of pretty good parsers are free, and they're a little more technical, but there's a lot you can do with server logs.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, if you're not using your server logs to look at crawl efficiency and those types of issues, you're not really doing SEO. So
this is it. Now, as far as it goes, AJ's just thrown an interesting one in chat, and I think, it's definitely worth talking about. I've certainly seen a number of forum posts in the last week concerning it, and although nobody's come along and actually asked a question, but I think everybody's kind of, well, a lot of people are kind of worried about the domain crowding thing, where they're seeing, 40 and 50 of the first 100 results from the same domain. Now, I spoke to John, I was in a discussion with John Mueller the other day, and he said that the issue, everybody's aware of the issue and it's being addressed. Maile, is that part of what you deal?
On the spot.
Blame AJ.
No, I think we're going to let John's, that stuff comes through, so John's correct that this stuff is kind of being looked into. So I'm going to leave it with John's answer, because that is truly the correct answer. Yeah,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot or try and get the secret sauce or anything. It's just, so at the moment the answer we give in the forums is basically it's being dealt with, Yeah,
so for sure, when we see something like that, whether it's John or Pierre or any of us, can say, hey, here's something that we should be taking a look at, and then the appropriate team looks at it and lets us know what's going on. So it's been reported. You guys can keep showing stuff that you see, for sure, letting us know when you think something's, especially people like you, Sasch, and all of you that we trust so much. So please send that to us if you see something, but it's being looked at.
Well, Sasch, I appreciate, I've been kind of in a cave working on a presentation, so I didn't catch that John had sort of made a statement around it. So
no, it was actually one of the sort of just talking turkey on Google Plus. I don't think it even was public. It was just sort of a few people just randomly got together and went, hey, how about this? In fact, I think I've got one here. Talking turkey. Talking turkey, of course. Hold on.
I think that's what you say in Cyprus. That's a Cyprus phrase.
No, we are talking halloumi. Excuse me a second. I'm sure
I can say I'm eager to see that addressed. I noted it probably about 3 months ago, and it's gotten progressively worse, not better. So it's distressing, and it's bad for some of my clients, but even beyond that, it's just a bad user experience from my view. I don't know. Maybe I'm not impartial as I'd like to believe. But, but when I see 8 results from Yelp for a search on the first page, really? It's just, I get it. I can go to Yelp and I can find, something about this, but to list 8 or it's just I don't know what's going on. Frankly, it just looks strange, and as I said, it's gotten progressively worse instead of better, which is perhaps a good thing because it will get looked at.
Yeah. So again, your better and your worse isn't necessarily what ours is, but if it does look fishy, then and things have. So it does get sent, and then it becomes investigated. So when we say it's being addressed, we don't mean it's going in your favor whichever way you wanted it to go.
Oh, I never expect that.
Okay.
I never expect that. As I said, I get it, you know. Hey,
okay.
But I'm sure I'd love it to be, but I'm just there are too many situations where 6 results from one site and the other pages aren't adding value. That's not really me saying, you know, I want to rank. That's just me looking at it and saying, this is not a good user experience.
Okay. Yeah, so it has been their stuff is circulating. So that's
If you give me just 2 seconds, talk amongst yourselves some more. If you give me 2 seconds, I'll actually pull up the example, the sort of the latest one that's turned into a bit of a discussion, and I'll throw it in chat.
One thing I've noticed too, it actually seems like it may be a little bit worse if you have like Google Instant turned off and you have kind of the default advanced search set to 100 or more. Sometimes you'll get quite a few. So.
Yeah, that's the very typical scenario, Brian. That's exactly what the average user does.
Yeah, I know that. That's why I had refrained from doing it,
I'll be sure to mention that in our report.
Yeah.
It's especially bad when you turn off Instant and you up your results to 100.
Yeah. Okay. You turn off Instant and Suggest, and you up it to 100. Yeah. And
you turn JS off, and
you put in NUM equals 56.
Must admit, I've always had my results set to show as many as I can.
Yeah.
Always. For more than 10 years. So.
Yeah, so most people, I don't know how many of us are here, the 7 of us are probably not typical, so let's just all acknowledge that. So whatever even is typical in this Hangout is not typical probably for the broad user base.
What are the numbers for users going into the settings and changing something? Any idea on the numbers?
I don't know. I think someone said that publicly once, but I actually don't remember what it is.
I'm not exact numbers, but is it 1%? Is it 10%? Is it 75%? I guess it's not 75, but
I would guess it's probably really, really, really low.
Yeah.
Low single digits would be my bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, I mean, as far as it goes, when you look at the fact that it's only just now in the last couple of years that people are actually becoming aware that there's even other browsers out there, let alone that you can mess with the one you're using. I would say it's probably really low.
Yeah, tell me about it. I read some user one day and said, my browser is iGoogle. No, that's not your browser.
That happened.
Yeah, Google actually did a video on that about what the difference was between a browser. I think when it was a Chrome video. I think a few years ago they went around New York City and asked people. So
Yes, I remember that. Around the same time, I also had someone not very tech savvy, and I asked the question. She was having a website, and she put up some of her paintings on it, and she was having troubles uploading. And I said, okay. It looks like that in your browser. I should say, what is your browser? 2-3 seconds of silence. Windows? Okay, that's probably Internet Explorer then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? That's the majority of users. I'm always thinking about that. I definitely live in a bubble, and I make sure I remember that. Though sometimes when you go and visit your parents, you can break out of that bubble.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I suppose there.
No, seriously, I was visiting my parents a couple of weeks ago, and my mother needed because I wanted to share something with her. I had previously discussed with someone else on Google+. We needed to go in and set up Google+. That's when it dawned on me how much I've actually customized and set up different Google services through the years. It was a totally different experience. where, yeah, anything from the front page of, won't you try another browser? Have you tried making Google your homepage? Oh, and did you know that Google Translate can... Mamma mia! All over the bleeding place.
I don't think we can underestimate how little unsavvy most people are. And I think I mean, I have to remind myself that every day when I'm having conversations with people who seem to be sort of terminally stupid, but they're just, they're new. They're new to the internet.
Yeah.
And you know, you forget there's people sort of joining every day who just really don't know what they're doing, and they think that the results page is where you get the results, that you don't have to click through. And a number of people I've explained to that you actually have to click to get through to the page that's going to give you your information. It's astonishing.
I've never met one of those.
I'm very polite.
This is part of where, I mean, with AJ saying he's definitely in a bubble, this is where hanging around the forums most definitely bursts that bubble. I mean, it's impossible to spend any kind of amount of time per day reading those forums and still going,
Yeah.
No.
I'm
glad you do that, Sasch. I can't.
I know. Thank you, Sasch.
No, it's
thank you, Brian. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Maggie.
Yeah.
You know, even I was taking an acting class once, and the instructor was saying that the hardest role to play is someone who knows less than you. So I think for all of us, so I don't know how you all do it, but yes, I think kind of pretending that you don't know what you know is hard to put yourself in their shoes.
Oh, yeah, yep.
No, this is very true.
And making what you do know intelligible, so there's sort of a slight chance they're going to get a good idea of what you're saying.
Yeah, so on this, I actually have a question. We can just diverge just for a few minutes. So we're trying to revamp some of the stuff in our help center for sites that have been hacked, or have hacked with spam or hacked with malware. It's really difficult. Like, first of all, empathy doesn't come naturally for me, so trying to write this and like, it's so draining.
You've been a bloody moron.
I don't believe you, Maile.
It's so hard. Like, I can't tell you, I'm so tired.
You do realize this is being recorded, right?
But I was wondering what you guys have seen in terms of hacked sites and what level you think someone needs to recover. You know, have you tried to recover, and were you actually frustrated and thought, because all of you are fairly tech savvy, did you find it really difficult? So it's like, it seems like people need to hire someone, or do you think that someone with average skills, say, and who's running a blog, could get themselves back online?
This is now the average blogger, right?
Yeah, we're talking about
this is one of us, right?
No. Your average blogger? No, I don't think they're going to be.
I don't think so.
No.
I really don't think so.
Especially if it involves, cloaking by, user agent or referrer or something like that. That's
totally.
I mean, I just did a site assessment 2 weeks ago for a site, that wanted to know what they need to do to help improve their rankings, and lo and behold, half their websites, they had just done a simple, site query. They would have seen that half their content had nothing to do with what their website's
what they're actually doing.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so you think average no. So average blogger, no. Okay.
Average blogger, no. I mean, it depends a lot on the platform. With a lot of blogging platforms, content management systems, then I would suspect that the average blogger just signs up with someone providing it, and then goes and clicks here and there, pulling every component and module in to the system, and they have absolutely no clue about how it works. Most of the time, I must admit, it's not very transparent seen from the outside how it works, so it's also very difficult to help them. They say, I'm running,
that's it. And again,
then they say the platform, but they forget that they had some little third party pulled in, and there was some configuration they did long ago, and they don't even remember they're having it now, so what advice to give.
And it's not just that. I mean, it's when you're actually turning around and even at the base, by the time I normally get to, look, you're going to have to check your HD access files, especially to see if there's any rogue HD. What's an HD?
You've lost them, haven't you?
What are you talking about? Speak English, goddamn you. That's basically the average response,
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. People aren't even going to open up and edit their WordPress themes, when I talk about, hey, set up authorship, and, for me it's like, use the method where you're actually linking and putting in the attributes, and they're like, oh, I don't know how to edit, like, I don't want to go into, the theme, that's too complicated. That's the easy part. Think about going to cPanel or going to PHPMyAdmin. I mean, their heads explode. There's no way. There's no way the average blogger's going to get there.
Okay, so thank you. Last question in the forums, as you guys were talking about. So there is that hacked and malware sites. Do you think any of those that come to with a question usually end up resolving and coming back online healthy? Or do you think there's more help that need to be done than we could have provided in the forum?
A good percentage, and there, say, hacked and malware, Dennis would be your man. I sort of wander in there once every blue moon, but I mean, the few that I've helped, I've occasionally had to take it further and talk them through it step by step by step. But I think when it gets right down to it, I do believe a lot of the people that walk away from the hacked and malware subforum have been helped. I think if the documentation and if the Webmaster Central information available will actually be revamped and sort of made more friendly, I'd actually be more than happy to throw a few hours at helping you with the documentation. Okay, seriously, and try and get it down to the bottom level, so that the novice has got half a hope of maybe understanding it.
I agree that a lot of people are helped. Redleg and Carly are very good at taking people by the hand through their problems. But everybody who comes in thinks that they can't generalize their problem and understand a general problem. They take it as a totally specific problem, and they can't look at it as a broader topic of finding out what went wrong and fixing it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's like your house was broken into, right? It's just your house. It's very emotional.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's great. I'll look. I'll talk to you guys probably in the clubhouse at some point, and then and show you kind of what we're thinking of.
Okay, perfect.
Look forward to it.
Perfect. Right. Next. Are we taking another one from the moderator?
Are there any good ones?
Judging by everybody's silence. Tom, you want to pull one out? Bear with me for 1 second. I'm going to have to get some water.
Okay.
I can still hear and sing. Just,
okay.
So when he's thirsty, he can still hear. Everyone get that?
Well, I mean, I'm just I'm not constrained by an 8-foot wire. Let's put it that way.
There's one here that says schema.org looks interesting. Google seems to be using a small amount of it for rich snippet, but Bing doesn't seem to be using it. Do you think the search engines are using it behind the scenes, secret? And do you think it's worthwhile to implement?
Okay. So a small amount for rich snippets, they mean a few of the schemas? Not all. What do they mean by small amount, do you think?
I posted the question in the chat.
Well, schema.org is kind of like it's massive in terms of so I think I can understand why someone might say they're only implementing a small amount of it.
Is that what they're referring to? Yeah, there's like 100 specs or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a huge, platform and schema.
Spec. Yeah. Okay.
Spec.
So I will say something about this, which is that I have seen people So they launched this whole thing, and they talk about all these different schemas. But it is true that we are currently only have user visible, making available, I don't know, say about 5 of them or maybe more, right? We got like events and people and recipes. Review. I would definitely put that, review, thank you. I would put that in terms of should I implement schema.org markup on my site as not something to be done immediately, but if you're changing your platforms or you're doing any type of redesigns, to have that functionality available. So make sure that going forward you can implement that. But I wouldn't spend my time implementing one of the schemas that we have yet to actually show as a change in search results. So I wouldn't go that far yet. I would just make sure you could as things develop, but I wouldn't
progress.
I wouldn't invest that much time because that payoff might not be worth it, right? But I would keep myself agile and able to do it.
Okay. Does that pretty much answer it, doesn't it?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then there's the forum user. What's the deal
Yeah,
with the RSS feeds? Some people recommend them, others say it's just an easy way to get scraped. Is there a right and a wrong way to do it?
So again, I've seen a bunch of these actually over the course of the last few months, and there's now there seems to be, I don't know, I guess a conflict where people are getting scraped. They're pumping out full article RSS. So basically, I mean, they're making the scraper's life as easy as humanly possible. Yeah, the scrapers are running massive sites, indexed fairly regularly, and basically, chances are that Google will be at the content on the scraper site before Google will be at the content on the originator site. And yet, people are slow to actually understand this. Now,
We lost Sasch, I think.
Uh-oh.
Does that not take us back to the bloggers not really having a very good idea of what they're doing, not understanding that really they should be giving people a snippet and not giving them their entire content to cut and paste?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't gift anybody with my hard-worked pieces.
can everybody hear me?
I don't know.
Hello.
I don't mind RSS. I mean, maybe I don't know. I guess the idea here is if you're getting scraped, so if you said, the scraper gets content before Google gets to it. But
well, no, Google will basically find the content on the scraper site because the scraper site has got.
I'm not convinced. Just me. I mean, and your mileage may vary, but in my experience, if you're getting scraped, that means that you've gotten to a point where you've reached a certain amount of trust and authority. So, scrapers aren't targeting sites. If you're running a site which gets 5 visits a day and you're blogging once a week and it's about little puppies and whatever, there's nothing there. The scraper's not going to target you. They target you, when you start getting good content people want to read. And at that point, I think Google does get to your content before it gets to the scraper content. That's my opinion. I've got PubSub, HubHub, or whatever version of that those 4 things are together to make sure that it gets there as quickly as possible so that I can sort of do that. But
you have authority, don't you, AJ?
What was that?
You have authority. You're going to get your stuff published. It's going to get picked up, and Google's going to see it. It's the little people we see in the forums who they might have written something original. I mean, probably they've just rewritten something that they've read somewhere else, but that gets stolen almost immediately because the people who are even lower down in the sort of the food chain than them are scraping their sites. That's what we typically see in the forums.
Is that okay? So I don't. I'll be honest. I don't experience that much with my client base, so I can't speak to that. I did put in the RSS footer. I mean, that's one of the things I did do, just to put the attribution into the RSS feed. So if it gets yanked by somebody, I at least know where it is. I've got the attribution, so hopefully it helps Google figure that out. Clearly, obviously, you should be implementing authorship so that Google knows who the author is of that content. So even if it does get scraped, the odds are that that authorship signal can help to untangle that. So I don't know. To me, the value of RSS, and I'm hugely biased because I spend about 3 hours a day in RSS and use it extensively. I think it's hugely valuable. So I wouldn't decide I'm not going to use RSS. I do publish.
No, absolutely not. Oh God, no.
I do publish full feed because I think it's just a better experience. And I'm not worried about people clicking through. I just want to get my message across. So different goals, and clearly, if people are having issues further down the chain, I'd certainly want to understand that better.
But again, it's something that comes through the forum with almost alarming regularity, and really from the little guy's end, I've started that the standard. I mean, obviously the attribution, the authorship, and what have you, but the standard advice is now basically, look, just don't post full feed,
Right.
If your stuff is good, if your stuff's worth reading, post a summary and let him click through.
That's interesting too, because I've actually had subscribers contact me preferring that I switch back to full feed.
Oh yeah, full feed.
It's more
just
convenient,
use
isn't it?
Super Reader. I mean, that's what I do. You can give me the snippet. I don't care. I'll use Super Reader and I'll get the full content anyway. So it doesn't really matter to me. You can get around it, which is kind of the issue as well. So it's like you're publishing a snippet, but really, if a good scraper wants to get at that, they're going to get at it.
Not true. True.
So it's sort of like, how much are you doing to prevent something which is, the boogeyman versus catering to your audience? I just don't see it.
I can actually see that. Yeah.
Now,
it's like saying I haven't. Go on.
I will say it'd be nice if FeedBurner did, something in the last couple years to help things along and try and make RSS a better experience or innovate in any way. So I don't know if it's just a husk of a product at this point or not, but I think there's a lot that could be done there. So I'm hopeful maybe that the folks at FeedBurner will work on ways to make this better. Miley's smiling. I'm not sure why.
Hopeful, maybe. It's just like that song. I'm hopeful, maybe.
She's empathizing.
So, debate's still open?
Nah, let's move on, shall we?
Okay. But most people, I mean, what did you guys usually decide? I mean, this debate has been, as Sasch was saying, they've talked about this for, 4 years. And I guess we're mixed in the group as to partial or full.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely seems to be two very pronounced sides of this fence. I don't think there are many people that, if you're going to take a side, you're going to take a side quite markedly.
Well, it is fairly black and white, isn't it? Full or partial.
Yeah.
There isn't a middle way.
I guess the fence is don't use it at all.
Okay, use it fully, use it nothing, or something in between. Those are the options, yes.
You could always experiment and see if partial actually did reduce the problem, too. And then, but if you thought that was at all be a solution.
Well, and at the same time, if somebody really wants to scrape your site and you do put out a partial feed, they can just use that as a signal to then go through and scrape your entire website.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
Totally.
you know, it's not like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, my mom always says locks are made for honest people. Anybody can kick down the door. So.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, it's like saying I've got the unhackable site. No, you haven't.
Yeah.
You've just
well, the first thing when you have that is not to tell anybody.
That's true.
But no, that's it. At the end of the day, if somebody makes up their mind that you're going to get hacked and has the wherewithal and the financial resources, they're going to get in, basically. So, next. Somebody want to pull one out of the moderator, or?
Yeah, I'm looking. You want to look at we have one that's traffic to my site is down. The other one is about iframes.
Should we?
Well, at the end of the day,
the
traffic to my site is down was actually an outreach to me.
Okay.
Guy from Italy. He's got a gambling portal. But he's been through the forum. He's had a load of advice, and he's sort of going, "Look, you've got these Helpdesk Hangouts. Can you just please get somebody to take a look at my site? Give me a second. I'll."
So do you want to do that one or do the iframe one?
I'll post it to the chat. Actually, as far as it goes, I don't think that one's one for the Hangout as such.
No.
I think it's a case of if everybody kind of has a look and maybe passes some thoughts on to me, and I can get back to him. But yeah, let's do the iframe one.
There it is.
Yeah. It says more iframes in a web page will affect the rankings in SERPs, but nowadays most of the social nowadays most of the social plugins coming with this iframe code. Will this one affect my rankings in Google? I think the question is it wise to use iframes? Will the ranking goes to wherever the contents of the iframe is coming from? I think that's what it's meant.
Thank you. Again, I'm not so good with empathy, so I had no idea. Not that this was empathy, but I was confused. Okay.
Yeah.
So will it affect the ranking? That's why he's saying, okay. So the number of iframes you have on a page will not affect your rankings, but yes, usually they are indexed separately. So if people are linking to your page, so people can link to the iframe independently and it can rank on its own, whatever that URL is, I'm pretty sure. So it won't necessarily go to your page in that way. But it does help with user engagement if that's what people enjoy using. But I wouldn't look to put an iframe in and think that you can now rank for whatever content is in that iframe on your site specifically.
Yes.
And the more of the content of the page is in an iframe, the less the page seems to have content.
True, there's less for your page specifically. The other thing, I think iframes can help with engagement for different reasons, but other thing to know is that also you're responsible for that code should it become malicious or infected. Right now you're serving an iframe, like you have a direct link to have spammy content because you're not responsible for that content necessarily.
That's an excellent.
What about if you use an iframe for code architectural purposes? That is, you put in an iframe which you put where you fetch the contents from somewhere else on the site, which you also have. Wouldn't it make sense then to simply put in a canonical? If it's the only place it's supposed to be found, is in that iframe on that page.
Well, but if you did that, then Google might index the iframe the canonical as opposed to the page that you're displaying it in. So you might end up with another page indexed, and the page that your page may not be indexed. Does that make sense?
No, he's saying they're both on a site.
I'm saying you got a page, let's call it page A, and on that page there is an iframe. The contents of the iframe is page B, which is also on the same side.
Right.
Now, if you in page B sets in and says, hey, this is just canonical for page A, and by the way, if Google ever asks for page B on its own, you say, no, not indexed. Don't you see this? It's only.
I have a feeling that would actually tear the time-space continuum.
Because you can't
sorry,
index and
you're right.
expect
It would
canonical.
because obviously it's a separate request. Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about this. Usually, though, most commonly, iframes are used as a template. I mean, not iframe, sorry. There's a template, and then an iframe is stuck in. So that scenario isn't as common. And just to be aware, so everyone's aware of this, if you do have a site that uses one template and then pulls in an iframe to get the unique part, and it's all on your own site, so it's not a third-party iframe, but you're using your own site, those can still, all those pages, although you think it's separate, so we've kind of seen this with like a site that had a lot of profiles. So they had example.com / say Lady Gaga, example.com / Maile Ohye, and all the unique content came from an iframe, which came from their database. But because it was all in an iframe, we actually thought they were all duplicates, Lady Gaga and Maile Ohye, because the template looked pretty much almost exactly the same and pretty boilerplate. So be careful of that too. So keep the unique content you want indexed for your site outside of an iframe. It's kind of a lesson there.
Maile, is this something that's going to change? I read that Google is crawling much, much deeper these days, where it actually reads any JavaScript included and also executes it and sees what comes out of it.
Yeah, that's true, but I think the iframe situation, of course things can fluctuate, but I think that's not going to be as affected by the JavaScript. The JavaScript's for kind of more discovery on the page, and it's orthogonal to the iframe kind of discussion.
Okay.
For us. But I mean, it can change, things can change, but I wouldn't look at that as being necessarily a big effect.
No, I'm just asking where, I mean, you put an iframe on a page, it's supposed, it's meant to be shown to the user as a part of that frame. So, and Google tend to take the approach that what the user see, that's how we are going to interpret the page as we can.
Yeah, but people embed like an iframe from a video, or that's not theirs. So the iframe is often, whereas the JavaScript execution is often on their own site to get to more content on their site, or for a unique navigation.
Yeah.
So I want to follow up because Thomas actually brought up an interesting technique of putting a no index on a page, but also rel canonicalling it to another page. I'm wondering if there are opinions on having, basically saying this page shouldn't be indexed, but it is also canonicalling to this other page, which is where I really want it to reside. Having both directives on there, is there an opinion on that?
Yeah, I jumped in there. I was thinking 301. I wasn't thinking no index, so I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, if you got a no index and it's a canonical, then canonical is there for determining which one is the page, and if in the moment you put in a no index, then that debate is kind of over. If you got a page that's no index and you have a scraper, for instance, that is beyond your control, then the scraping will be shown, no matter what canonical you put in anywhere. Am I right?
The thing I would have to ask is, okay, so page A is no index, and then it's canonical somewhere else. What lives somewhere else? Is it a copy of page A? Is it something different? Is it what?
I've seen it on a couple sites.
What's at the other end?
It's essentially, someone goes in and says, it's usually around parameters. So they say, this page should go to, is really about this superset page. And then they get the idea of, they see it in the index maybe, or that doesn't pick it up, and they say, but I don't want that in the index. So they're trying to do two things at once, is essentially what it looks like to me. But I just wonder what that, how that is sort of digested, and if anybody has had sort of experience seeing that.
Well, I mean, if it's no index and rel canonical, the links can still be followed, and so it seems like that could, play with the link graph a little bit in the fact that even though it's no index, the links would still be followed, and then as a result, where did the inbound links, come from, and that's where the rel canonical could help to, straighten that out. But it seems like most people wouldn't use that technique, I guess.
Mm.
Well, particularly given that the rel canonical is an advisory, it's not an instruction, isn't it?
No, it's advisory, yeah. But it's strong advice, isn't it?
I was going to say, yeah.
But I mean, do any other? I mean, Google recognizes it. Do Bing and Yahoo recognize it? Do other search engines follow the rel canonical?
I think they do.
Am I going to find that at mileohye.com or not?
I don't have anything on that. I probably should. So Bing and Yahoo have announced support for it. In general, my advice would be if you have a rel canonical, I wouldn't no index that. I would remove the no index and keep the rel canonical if you have it going someplace else.
What I like about a rel canonical is that you can get people actually to read that particular page, and even if it's a weak page, but it's important for them. It's what they want to read, and reap the benefit by pointing it elsewhere to the important page in that particular group of pages. So I mean that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It does keep it available, unlike a 301 that automatically you can't have both existing. So I think if you are taking the time to put a rel canonical, then you should probably also remove the no index, because you're saying this page is a duplicate of something else, and I'd like that transferred. So yeah, Bing and Yahoo have announced support.
And if we can, just for a second, on the iframe thing, sometimes that used to confuse me as far as how Google would handle it too, but I do want to say that, so if page A has an iframe of page B, from Google's standpoint, they have to crawl and index page A and page B and they would have to associate the content of page B at the URL for page A and index the URL for page A, and I think that's part of the problem too, as far as iframes and frame content and stuff like that, in addition to it coming from other sites and this and that and the other. But a lot of times you'll see pages that are framed within the same site actually be indexed, and the problem is that if the page is indexed, the iframe content is indexed and it doesn't have navigational elements, like let's say the template provides the navigational element, then it's possible like you'll arrive at a page in search results that don't have a navigation, don't look like they're part of the site, and sometimes too, because you have content that's iframed within the same content of a single page, you'll have analytics code will be implemented in either the framed content or in the framing content, and to prevent duplicate analytics. And so in many cases, the frame content that's indexed doesn't have the analytics code, and doesn't appear in your analytics data either. So it can cause a number of other more complex issues. I'm sorry if that was fast, but hopefully it made sense.
Well, actually, yeah, if you can just summarize what you've just found and read it into the record, that could be,
Sure. So there's a discussion of this covered by Barry Schwartz on Search Engine Roundtable, and it links to a thread from the help forum, and John Mueller has been kind enough to answer it, so I'll just read it in. This is definitely an interesting question. Before the REL canonical link element was announced, using no-index robots meta tags was one of the ways that webmasters were directing us towards canonicals. So this is certainly something we know and understand. However, with the coming of the rel equals canonical link element, the optimal way of specifying canonical is, apart from using a 3.0 and redirected to the preferred URL, is to only use the rel equals canonical link element. One reason for this is that we sometimes find a non-canonical URL first. If this URL has a no-index robots meta tag, we might decide not to index anything until we crawl and index the canonical URL. Without the no-index robots meta tag, with the rel equals canonical link element, we can start by indexing that URL and show it to users in search results. As soon as we crawl the canonical URL, we can change the canonical URL instead. It's also much safer because you don't have to worry about serving different versions of the content depending on the exact URL. Smiley face.
Good read. So essentially, John
very official.
Has mentioned, what we were talking about, which is try to remove the no index, just have a rel canonical. It simplifies things in several ways.
Cool. Yep. Well, we're heading
Thanks for
close
finding
to
that
time.
article too.
Oh, my pleasure. At least I could do
John
it.
is far more eloquent than my babbling about. I wouldn't do that. I'd remove the no index. So.
Don't do it.
Yeah. Are we about to close up, Sash?
We're heading for time, so I guess. And again, it's the last one from the moderator here. What are the general thoughts on the growing trend of websites charging people $20 to $500 to remove a link and calling it the link removal processing fee? Again, it's something that's growing in volume as far as the forum is concerned, and I've personally dealt with at least 6 of them in the last week. So God knows what the overall is for everybody put together, you know. But there's a whole cottage industry that's sprung up right in the wake of the link annoia caused by the whole Panda Penguin latest algo updates. Oh, incoming links are bad. We touched on this briefly last week with Matt having received the link removal request. But this is really just, it's I guess a question on the general opinion about the link removal processing fee altogether. So what's everybody think about it?
I think Google should allow you to be able to report these sites through the paid link tool and basically discredit those links. I think that would be the fastest and easiest way.
I second that.
Nah, totally. That's it. I mean, that was part of a discussion a while ago. Well, a week ago or thereabouts.
A week ago.
Really,
yeah.
I can't remember who suggested it, but yes, a mechanism to report would be very, very handy in this case, and I can see AJ grinning.
I've actually kind of changed my mind on this one, so I don't know.
And by the way, that's going to be $20 to have any links removed from his site. So.
Send an invoice shortly.
We'll bring it up. We have a meeting on Wednesday, so we'll raise that question too.
Okay, cool.
I don't know. I think I've been thinking a lot about the whole disavow links and saying, I just want to get rid of that. And as a parent, I started watching, kids who I find obnoxious, and one of the things that happens, and when you watch the parents with these kids, is they'll say, "Do that again, and we're going home." And guess what? They do it again. Do they go home? No. They do it again. We're going home. Do they go home? No. Again and again and again and again. And it got me thinking that, if you give people the ability to easily say, oh, I just want to disavow this link, there's a potential, and let's face it, we're in an industry where this would certainly happen, where you go, hey, there's no pain involved again, right? Because I can just go up and buy a whole bunch of links and do some shady link building, and when it doesn't pay off and I get hit, I can just say, just disavow that. Let's go back, reset the clock.
Do-over.
Surely it'd be a question. Well, first of all, with regards to your analogy, it would really have to be the parent going, do that again, we'll go around AJ's house. But no, as far as I would guess that a record is kept in a big golden book somewhere, and if there have to be flags, yeah, and it's like, hang on, this is like the third time that this site has. Hold on, something ain't right here. I mean, we're talking about Google here. This isn't Bing, There's gonna be the track record and the trust involved in there somewhere,
I hear you. I'm saying it's there has to be consequence, and I know that we all run into people who say, I didn't know this was bad, but it's kind of the same thing with any type of, rule or whatever, ignorance isn't a defense.
No, this is true.
And so there's a part of me that unlike Maile, I might empathize with these folks' plight. I don't sympathize, because it's sort of like, you know what? I get it. You're in a tough spot. It sucks. It's awful for you. But, yeah, you got to pay the piper. Sometimes things got to hurt for you to learn. And I probably won't make many friends with that kind of philosophy. But I don't know. I've thought about it and sort of changed my mind and think maybe disavowing links is potentially a bad thing.
I tend to agree with you that once Google brings in a disavow tool, it's just going to make it so easy for people to say, "Oh, I don't know how that happened. Please, can we wipe the slate clean?" And I'm squeaky clean now.
It's certainly subject
caveats. No,
yeah,
sorry,
it's certainly very ripe for abuse, as AJ points out. I just from a philosophical standpoint, though, if you can truly get all of your shady links down, you may get a do-over anyway.
I've got nightmare links. I've had nightmare links for the last 8 years. I mean, porn sites, all sorts of things. I don't think they've ever hurt me.
Right.
They've just happened because I don't know why they've happened. But it's a site about dogs, for goodness sake, and so in fact I get a lot of error links from with the code with anchor text of big dongs, which has always kind of surprised me. But I worked out what it meant.
The dong is obviously that Chinese breed of temple dog, right?
That's right. But obviously there wasn't sufficient of a pattern for it to hurt me. But I've got a lot of rubbish links, always have had. And there must be sort of a pattern that is recognisable. Well, obviously it's a pattern that's recognisable by the spam team.
Yes, unfortunately, there's a lot of crap online.
Crap and dong, yes.
Yes, dong. Yeah. Anywho, well, I guess that about wraps it up, unless somebody else wants to say anything about links just before we go, but I guess we're about there.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
And you.
Catch y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
See you in Seattle.